And good morning. Good to see you all. And Steve, once again, thanks for sharing that opening words with us. And that song by Wayne Watson goes way back and brought lots of memories. We're in our study, as you are fully aware, of the Gospel of John, chapter 18. We're now in the cross narrative, the events leading up to the crucifixion itself. And we're going to look at verses 25 and 27 from a second view. We introduced those last week, but we're going to be looking at this idea of disorder. Uh, Jeff and Bob's not with us this morning, but Jeff, it was so good for me to hear your comments last week. And as you often do, you do a summary and a synopsis of what you think we're talking about and what I'm trying to express. And last week is one of many times where you so reflected the point I'm trying to get across. I'm a Bible teacher, and for me, at this age, I'm constantly asking, what is it I believe? Why? Is in relation to the text, and how can I better express it? And that slide set from last week, of which we'll review, um, that the order, disorder, and reorder idea is something that resonated, and that's really meaningful to me. So I've expressed it numerous ways throughout time, and I really like this rendition. In the text itself, as a review from last week, Simon Peter is standing and warming himself by the fire. Um, and those standing around said to him, don't I recognize you? Aren't you one of his disciples? And of course, Peter denies it. That's strike two, or his second swing. I'm not. Verse 26, one of the slaves of the high priest who is related to one whose ear Peter cut off. Remember, we already read about that. He said, now, wait a minute. I did see you. You were in the garden with him. And of course, uh, Peter said, no way, denied it. And immediately the rooster crowed. And of course, we know the prophetic word through Jesus. And this is the third point. That was a major, major point for Peter, as what I've been attempting to express. It's a major threshold for Peter, a beginning of something new, and very painful. And it's in our experience as well. It's like the kind of thing that we have and possibly will experience in our own life. So I've labeled this time period in Peter's experience as disorder. Last week, we introduced the idea of disorder, and this week, we're going to talk about what it feels like that season. I've landed on this idea as Steve was talking about earlier. We are born complete. We were There was a point in history, a point in time, real time, where God, the creator, thought of every one of us on this call and all humanity and created us the way we are. Um, and I don't look at that as 80%, 60%, or even 99%. I think we're created the way God, through his act of love, created us. And that's really important. That's a very difficult thing for us humans to embrace. What we tend to do, because we're brought into this world that's filled with false constructs and different ways of thinking and cultural ideas, and some good, some not so good, we enter life and we work towards building something, we really don't really think about this. We want to build who we think we need to be, and that's the idea. The the shadowed image here represents the idea that I'm constantly, as I in my formative years, trying to build who I think I need to be, and as I receive positive input, I feel more strong, more solid. As I don't receive that, I feel more shadowed, less weaker or stronger, and from my own perception. So that's why I illustrated it like that. Now, overview from last week, order, the first formative years of life, where I'm born and I'm asking this question, do I have what it takes? Order is about building. This is a definition. It's about building our lives, and it's normal. We need to do this because we need to create some sort of identity. It's the kind of life which is epitomized by our culture, meaning that to much of our culture, especially in the advertising realm, what the epitome is becoming fully building this stage of life. And it doesn't really address the other stages of life. It's motivated by assumptions about, depending on our cultural and tribal upbringing, of how things work, especially about God, self, and the world. We're trying to, what is this all about? That's order. Now, this phase is where I'm suggesting Peter is operating from this phase, and I think it's a common phase we all experience. Life pushing in, the idea of the open hand and the closed hand, and that's the idea that I'm learning that as I let go, open hand, uh, it really is a positive growth experience for me. I mean, I get that. I start to release control, uh, good things kind of happen. As I clamp down, which represents, that would be the vertical line, the vertical lines, I go, it doesn't work very good. And we're learning that. We're in that realm of time when we're learning about control and the release of control. And disorder kind of culminates in this time that we're seeing here in Peter, where it's a rupture or an ultimate collapse of that framework. How I think it ought to be is not how it's working. And it's serious. It's trauma, confusion, disorientation, identity crisis. That's what Peter is in right now, and that's what we're looking at. Um, reorder is the idea that, once everything is dismantled here, it creates space for something new to occur. And our approach in that newness becomes dramatically different. Think of the instance in Acts where Paul had his encounter on the road to Damascus. Paul had a very set structure. And the first thing in that wonderful story, which is a metaphor for us too, is the first thing that happened is he was blinded. He could not see how he saw before. And that's a critical piece. This has to be dissolved, dismantled before this can occur. And of course, what emerged out of the road of Damascus is quite a different Paul. He had different lenses and different motivations. That is the world of reorder in life. So, loosely speaking, it helps me to have some kind of explanation and some kind of grid to communicate, to understand and communicate what is our journey about. And that, I think that's an effective way to look at it. So let's look at deep dive into this subject of disorder and talk about from our own experiences what it's like, what it feels like. Disorder, this is kind of going from general to specific. So disorder is more than intellectual doubt or moral failure. Call it a speed bump. And this is a season. It's a loss of coherence. I mean, it's a serious state. And again, I'm could be speaking into your own experiences to some degree, maybe not. But it's a loss psychologically. I'm going, my goodness, these parts are falling apart here spiritually. What is it, God? What is it I believe, even socially, because it affects how I interact with other people. It's a major. Uh, it's not a reorder. We're not in reordering yet. It's a collapse. Uh, Subcomponents of this is fear and anxiety. This is normal. The familiar ways of thinking that maybe I've had for decades, they no longer apply. It just have a different set of lenses. Imagine Peter now at this juncture in his life. He's there. We've known Peter throughout the narrative of this gospel, and he's the guy, he's like the staff sergeant to Jesus. He's the guy that makes things work. And his world, I've had the slide in the past where he got the Peter bullets. He's used to exerting his force and his influence and to bring about compliance. That's Peter's world, his framework. The loyal staff sergeant carrying out the orders of the lieutenant here, in this case. I mean, to carry the analogy. And he's thinking at this point, because of what he's come to face with in this at this fire, is I thought I was brave. I thought I was loyal. I was so sure. I was so self-assured. That's fallen apart, folks. And it because of this, he's experiencing in a very actually, I think it's what's he's going through is actually very, very good. But he's got fear and anxiety. He's very uncomfortable. He feels exposed. He's quite a different Peter than we see him in the prior narratives. He's quiet. He says in the text, he's standing still. And he's standing still for a reason because he's petrified. He's got a deep awareness that his internal life doesn't line up with what he's been posturing. That is what's going through his head. I denied my Lord 3 times. And he's asking some very serious soul searching questions. Disorientation. What once made sense now feels alien. The self narrative is crumbling. And again, this is speaking into our experience to degrees. And it's not something we seek, it's something that happens to us. And it can happen in various ways and in different contexts. But the narrative that I have created is basically falling apart. The wheels are falling off of what I have been putting fuel in for years. And with that, integral to that, the self narrative, how I view myself, is also crumbling. That's what's happened to Peter. Isolation. Peter is still by himself. Others may not understand that's often the case, and God may feel very absent. That is very much the case. because nothing has changed from God's perspective, but everything is changing from my own perspective. And within this, there's a wonderful beauty because for the first time in our own experience, we may understand what it's like to be held. You know, being a strong male American with health and vigor and some abilities, we move ahead, take the leadership, and move like Peter has shown us, and it's now falling apart. Identity crisis, that's kind of the culmination of this slide. And Peter's asking, who am I? Who am I? What's left? Who am I if I am not the loyal disciple? That's how he viewed himself. And his actions at this fire have shown something different. In Peter's case, we're watching the collapse of who Peter thinks he needs to be, the Peter that Peter has created, of which I think is it's the common human experience. So what this means for all of us, Peter's three denials that we see here at the fire, and we see the last two this morning, are the outward expressions of an inward unraveling. He's coming apart. And this is not a bad thing. I'll explain that in a minute. Think of what is happening possibly like this. I'm going to throw out a scenario. Okay, we have Peter's denials. His three denials are not due to Peter's lack of strength. In our default mode of thinking, this is being human within the world we live in, is that we're thinking, Peter, lace your boots up tighter. Come on, get with it. Try harder, Peter. You idiot, try harder. That is the club. It's one of the very few clubs I had in my bag for decades. Just keep trying harder. Well, when you're in your 20s and your 30s, you've got the strength and the fortitude to bull ahead within the context of what your head is telling you. But as we age, that strength starts to subside. We don't have that anymore. And we're seeing Peter coming to the end of his own strength. It's not, we don't want more Peter. Try 10% harder, Peter. That is how our natural way of thinking goes. Peter, try harder. But that is actually the problem. Rather, we're seeing the very collapse, and in this case, strength, fortitude, leadership, self-assertiveness, being in control, those things that represent strength. We're seeing the collapse of that. And it's that very thing that has been holding Peter back from the Peter that God has created Peter to be. That is the idea. And it is so counterintuitive to all of us. We'll keep going until we just can't do it anymore. Peter is losing the version. I like that term, version. Peter's created a version. He looks like Peter. He kind of looks like Peter, but he's a version of a Peter that Peter has created. And that Peter has to die so the real Peter, the Peter that God created, can emerge. Now we're getting into the mystery of transformation, union with Christ, and what it means of the false self, all of this language that the New Testament talks about and we don't really hear much about. This had to occur, guys, in order. It doesn't have to occur, and sometimes it occurs to various degrees. But for Peter to become the Peter that we see later in the New Testament, this had to occur. This is it. This is what had to occur for Peter to become who Peter really is. The post the post Peter is not perfect. It's not about perfection. It's about having a different set of eyes and a different set of motivations for what is really important. And that is, he's at an ending and a beginning right here. As last week, that was the title, Ending and Beginning. And I'm calling it a gift right here. I'm calling this opportunity a gift. It is super painful, but that's how I frame it. It's a gift to Peter, and it was offered, it came to him through the function of disorder, this season that he's in. And disorder is briefly defined here as a dismantling. I've used all kinds of words here to describe it. In this case, it's a dismantling of the false self, the Peter that Peter has created, so that the truer, humbler, grace-formed Peter can emerge. And that is what reorder is about. Now let's illustrate this, and then we'll go to table time. Again, Peter was created here. Peter built his own self-constructs of what Peter needs to be, and now that is really being challenged here at the fire. So in the first phase of life, this order, the illustration here, it's like all of us are filling the tank. There's a vessel that with my name on it, with Jeff's name on it, with Totsi's and Steve's, and we're doing the best we can with what we have to fill the tank with what we think needs to be in the tank, representing our life. So we're filling the tank. And this is not all bad. It has to happen. It is necessary. It is normal, because we're all trying to work with this idea of identity and becoming. And that's what order is about, filling the tank. There is the second phase, of which we're focusing in on last week and this morning, called disorder. And that is where now the tank needs to be emptied, like that. And that's happening. The constructs that Peter's been operating are actually going down the tube right here. It's just not working. And that seems really, really fearful, very scary, but it's necessary. Disorder. And to use the tank analogy out to the end, the third phase, reorder, is a time in life where, yes, the tank is empty, and I realize that I need to allow life to come to me in order for life to occur. Now, words that we could use would be participation. I'm a participant. It's privilege. I get to be here. It's curiosity. Rather than a fear-based faith and protection of what we think is the truth, it's really about curiosity and engagement in this privilege of life that God has given us, the days we have left, and to allow life to happen, both the positive stuff and the negative stuff. And that requires faith. and it's a reordering. And I have made a statement of that down here: free of the me that I have created. And that is really quite a freeing kind of thing. If we can learn how to create lemonade out of lemons, that is a really great skill, because life is not all lemonade. We get lemons. So, table time, we've got this image that we're all on this journey. And sooner or later, we come to the edge. Peter is at the edge. He's at an edge. And this edge is he's at a moment of truth. And I think you and I come to an edge numerous times, maybe one time, maybe numerous times, where it's scary. We're at a high altitude. We're looking at the sign, warning, this is not easy. And the warning is saying this is new and treacherous. I don't understand it. I think a lot of it has holes. I really don't like this at all. And that's the terrain that we're being called into. Now the sign for the subtext is the Apostle Paul standing there and encouraging you could do this. Or Jesus, free. It's yes, fear is normal. Get used to it. But folks, the views are incredible if we allow this to happen. Now, we're at this sign and we're there. This guy's a little bit younger than us, but any age can go to the sign. But the truth is, at least from my perspective, is that because God loves us is everything. We always have a choice. We miss it, but it's not, he's done with us. No, not the case at all. Some of us are ready and we will move down the path. We heed the warning. We know it's coming. We respond to the terrain as the terrain comes to us. And this just is a matter of if we're ready, if we're in a place where we can do that. It's not if we are accepted or rejected. It has nothing to do with it. We're accepted regardless. We're accepted in and through Christ. And some of us are ready to move down that path when we're at that edge. Some of us at times, and true of me, of course, is that we go a little ways, you go, nah, I don't think so. I don't really want to do that right now. I'm going to stick where I am. It's too big for me right now. I just can't go there. It's fearful. I don't trust it. It puts me on shaky ground. I don't like it. I think it's wrong. And what I'm being invited to is rejected. And that's a reality that we all know to some degree at various times in our life. And it all has to do with our preparation. Are we ready to move beyond our own comfort? Remember, we've been talking about the whole idea of the 15%. Well, that's really being illustrated here with this. Can I move out there a little bit, or am I, or not? So that's what I'd like to talk about this morning, is this edge experience, and hear from you guys from your own experience, to hear your story. I've told you parts of mine as they apply. What do you see? What do you see? What images in your mind about your own life come into play as you look at this image and as we've looked at this content this morning. So the floor is yours, gentlemen.
For me, Mike, and I don't know how this all fits with what the last part of what we were talking about, but if I go back to the original slide and in that time of up and down,
Yeah, disorder.
yeah, the disorder, to me, that is in my life has been a series of failures where you realize I'm not all that. You know what I mean? Um, I, I, we build ourselves as, especially in the military, especially as pilots, you build yourself up. I'm the best. I can do this, and you have to have that kind of mentality in order to do some of the things they're asking you to do. The same with flying for the airlines. You're flying around in a 300,000 pound airplane and, you know, uh, hauling around precious cargo and things like that. And you've got to have that mentality of I can do this. I know how to do this. I'm good. And there's occasions where you mess something up and you're like, oof, I survived that, but that was not good. I did not do that well. Um, and so I they're looking at Peter. He failed,
Mhm.
but through that failure, Peter realized I'm not all that. I thought I was. But then Christ was able to fill him up, to make him stronger, to make him the rock that he built the church on.
Yeah.
And so those failures in our lives, if we can take them and say, yeah, I'm not all that, but God can make me better than I
Mhm.
actually was if I allow that. If I take that trajectory back down to where excuse me, I'm becoming what I was created to be, then we become stronger through that. And eventually we get on that reorder, or the, what is it? Yeah, the reorder line, and we become who who Christ wants us to be. But it's not it's not because we've eh, gotten ourselves built up and we're who God wants us to be. It's because, like you said before, we've realized we're not all that. We've emptied ourselves and allowed God, who is the ultimate strength, the ultimate power, to fill us up to become who we want to be, who we were created to be. But it's those failures in our lives that we can go, hey, you know, I am I am not all that, Jeff. You're not all that. But with Christ, you can be more.
So again, like Jeff does, he hits the nail on the head. The crux that we all deal with, and I don't think it's easy. The point of where we fail, yes, like Peter's time in the garden, strike three, you're out, Peter. Um, that is never welcomed. It is always hard. It is always a struggle. And I always feel like it's the end. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you feel like, yeah, I just messed up so bad that God can't use me or whatever.
Right.
But as I we were talking about this, I thought about Peter had been through this failure. And then after Christ is resurrected, he meets Peter and others on the beach and he goes, Peter, do you love me?
Yeah.
And he's like, I do. And he's probably thinking, I know I failed you, but I love you. I
Yeah.
denied you, but I love you. And then that's when Christ goes, and do what I'm asking you to do. Be who I'm asking you to be, because you are stronger now than before your failure. When you thought, I am Peter, I'm the leader of this group,
Yeah.
or whatever, and then you failed miserably. Now you realize that you need all that I'm giving you in order to be who you want, who I've designed you to be. So uh, it's the failure that Peter went through that then allowed Christ to speak the power into his life that would be who Peter became, the the cornerstone, or whatever, the foundation of the church.
The critical piece that you're talking about there, my mind went to a verse that we're going to look at next in chapter 19, where after the crucifixion and resurrection morning, Jesus meets the women and he says, "Go tell the disciples and Peter."
Yeah.
So, what has become really, really important to me is that when I view myself as the most giant dirt bag who's ever lived, extrapolating all of these "you are worthless" view of, I'm kind of blowing it up, but you understand.
Yeah.
Jesus is still asking for me. Jesus
Mm.
wants relationship for me. It's still on. Nothing in heaven has changed. Jeff and Tassi, by the way, Steve just texted me. He lost his Zoom call. He's trying to get back on. Um, that to me has meant everything. It's not based on my performance. It's based on who he is.
Hmm.
And that, Jeff and Totsi, it's taken me a better part of my lifetime to embrace that.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't before, but it's so much more meaningful to me now.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where you have to realize, as you grow in Christ, that you are precious to him regardless of what you do.
Yeah,
you know Regardless of your failures, of your
yeah,
victories, whatever,
yeah.
you can't become any more precious to him than you already are.
Yeah. And I think that I couldn't agree more. And I think it's a really hard thing to get from paper to heart.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We used to talk about head knowledge and heart knowledge and all that. Yeah, that's one analogy, but what is that? What does that really mean? So, well, thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Any other comments there, Jeff? Not to shut you
Oh,
down, but I want to
no,
hear
no.
if Totsi's got some comments.
Yeah, what I'm dealing with I turned 88 this on the 29th of July. So, uh, and what I found
Wow. Happy
is
birthday.
that I'm losing my, not only, physically, I'm having problems. I'm losing my memory, and what is happening is I'm developing dementia. Okay.
Hmm.
And we just went to my wife and I and my friend Mike and we went to the VA meeting, and this woman gave actually a wonderful talk on how you who don't have dementia treat people who do have other dementia.
Oh,
And the thing is not to actually offer advice of how to do things right, but to more or less listen, okay, and just just have them be accepted. And for me, it's actually um, a way for me to really depend upon the Lord to deal with this particular issue. Plus, my uh, nephew's MD and he has all sorts of ways that you can do that. So I'm doing that. But one of the basic things that underlies it for me is I turn to the Lord, okay,
Mhm. That's
and
good.
rely upon the Lord to help me deal with that, and to also, uh, you know, prepare me for what I'm going to do in terms of, getting to heaven and really finding out that I don't have to worry about dementia anymore. Okay. So anyway, that's kind of what I'm
Yeah,
my
that's
story.
that's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Steve, thanks. I got your text. Thank you. And yeah, you have been talking the last couple of weeks about your connection over there. Um, anyway, so I don't
Yeah,
know why that part of town is having a trouble. So
well, we're still with CenturyLink. They don't want to be serving residential customers anymore. And so it's pretty antiquated.
hmm.
And between that and I'm in the process of getting a new laptop going. I'm
Oh
not
yeah.
quite there yet. My old one is, well, it's unstable.
Yeah.
So there
As
we
are we all.
are. Yeah. Yeah. It's it's a metaphor for, yeah, disorder and reorder. That's what it is. Um, yeah, so sorry I missed what you said, Jeff, and most of yours, Totsi. But my sense, Mike, is that this this doesn't really end. I mean, I can sort of understand coming to a reordering of my theological constructs and so on, but I also see this maybe as a more almost daily thing, but that's not quite the right. But the
Yeah.
journey through life um, has a lot of these signs, like in your picture here with this
Yeah.
hiker.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, a sort of psychosocial, spiritual development, you will, every stage of life has its challenge, um, where what we used in the previous stage doesn't really work anymore.
Right.
I'm sort of guessing here that virtually everyone on this Wednesday morning Zoom thing, because of our age, is dealing with or beginning to deal with sort of the challenges of aging, if you will. Um, I'm probably drawing the spiritual part of this out of there, but yet I hear what you said, Tatsi, too, in terms of um, trusting God in this. That um, there is that disordering. What used to work doesn't anymore.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, it speaks to where we're at. Speaks to where I'm at. Yeah.
So I'd like to know if, yes, you've stated it very well, and on board with what you're saying 100%. And what, either an instance or how, when that conversation comes up about, man, I just don't think I can do this. And even in the data, I mean, you're talking about a move, you're talking about new internet connection, day-to-day existence. How does that kind of thinking come into that? I just got to let this go so this can happen. Can you think of an instance with you, Steve, where you are in your journey right now where that's true?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm sorry. It sort of feels like it's there, but I can't really think of a
Yeah.
specifics right now. Um, I don't know, pushing this, and maybe I'm avoiding self-disclosure here with the
Oh, no,
crew,
there's
but
no
maybe,
pressure.
as I wrote things down as you were going through this loss of coherence, um, fear and anxiety because familiar ways of thought no longer apply,
Right.
disorientation.
Yeah.
I'm probably a little too stuck on staying up with current events and news. Um, but I look at our country as a whole, and I think we're going through this right now in a really profound way. Um,
Yeah.
I think there's a loss of coherence. I
Yeah.
try not to get too political here, but the whole "Make America Great Again" to me is in a sense, I think, an attempt to go back to order
Oh,
instead of
interesting. Yeah.
reordering.
Yeah.
Um, I better not go any further here.
Yeah. Well, it certainly resonates with me that I made a statement, I think it was this week, where I said it's not about reorder is not about going back. It's about embracing and moving forward. And I think that's what you're commenting on. It,
Yeah, it is. It
it
is.
in my mind, for what it's worth, I've embraced that idea that I think it's impossible to go back because God is always moving ahead. God is sovereign and he's moving ahead. I can't decide what slice of history I want to adopt to. People have tried and then live out of that. I may learn from, I want to learn and embrace from my background. It's part of defining who we have all become. But I've got to think about that that trail. I either stay here or I move forward as long as I'm fogging a mirror and I'm being instructed here at this point, at this juncture. Wow, it's treacherous and you may not understand it. I don't, but I like that term, you can do it, because I think that yes, you can in Christ. Fear is normal, embrace it. But man, the views are incredible. I'm dealing right now in my little story with the camp. Mike, I've been involved with our camps for 20 years. And in my former years, I loved the whole dynamic of, I would move trailers 2 weeks there were times when I would move our trailers one weekend and then the next to Buena Vista just so I could get our gear over there to set up these camps. And I loved it. I didn't even think about it. I loved it. That is not the case anymore. And I've been up at Bliss's this year where our camp is. We're on this side of the mountain, which is one move I did several years ago to lessen the pain. And but quite honestly, Steve, I'm asking the question, what is the viability of this format for the future and my involvement? If we had a couple guys in their 50s or 40s come along and say, hey, we'd like to do that, man, I'd be all over it to help them, to try to share. But, that hasn't occurred. And I'm really asking the question. So I went up a few weeks ago just to spend 3 nights in pondering. I love being out there, but I just don't want to go through all of that work anymore.
Mm.
And so I'm really asking, what does this mean for us as an organization? So I know it's not a big deal to you guys, but it is to me because I'm asking, well, what is that sign telling me? And how do
Well,
I adjust? I can't change it. How do I adjust for the future? So
and I was thinking, Mike, as I was looking at this sign, and what you just described is what I was thinking about, is sometimes it's a nice, smooth little trail like he's about to take. But sometimes it is, I mean, we are trudging. our head is down. We're trying to avoid rocks and crevices and everything, and so our head is down, and we're not.
Yeah.
Then we get a chance to rest, and we turn around, and we go, "Wow, what did I miss? Look at all the view that I missed by
Yeah.
keeping my head down." And you sound like you're in the trudging phase of this thing, and you're missing out at this point on the view.
Well,
So
yeah.
yeah, I think this is one of those things where maybe God's going to give you a chance to sit down on a rock and turn around and go, "Wow,
Wow.
look at the view,"
Yeah.
kind of thing. So I think you're trudging right now, maybe, but at some point, God is going to go,
You get,
"Hey, Mike, turn around and see what you just
yeah.
accomplished. See what you just came through.
Yeah.
See the view that I wanted you to see." So
That's good.
And
Yeah.
that's the positive in this, Jeff. I appreciate that because it can be uh, sort of a downer in a sense to, to go, wow, I'm disoriented and whatever. And yeah, it's rocky and rough. I have a little sign up here on the half wall by my desk that says the best view comes after the hardest climb.
yeah,
Yeah. 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 That's true. Yeah. And the hardest climb is metaphorically at our age, it's not actually about climbing, but it's a metaphor for a time of struggle, a time of difficulty where, like Jeff says, God sits down and sits, hey, Mike or Jeff or Steve or Tatsi, hey, just sit down for a minute. This is not about what you can accomplish. This is about what I've given you and you're a part of right now. Take a look.
yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a much more healthier view. Yeah. Well, fellas, thank you for joining in. And I said next week we're going to be on the 20th, we're going to be together. And we'll plan on next week, the 27th, I'll be gone and then back 1st of September. So thank you for joining in. Good discussion, fellas, and thanks for sharing. And we'll go on to 28, I think 28 and 20. No, it's just first 28 for next week. And we'll follow Peter as they take Jesus further in his trials. I think he's handed over to Pilate next week. So, anyway, have a good rest of your week, and we'll see you in 1 week. Bye for now.
See you guys.
Thank you, Mike.
Right.
Bye
Yeah,
bye.
bye for now.
Hey, guys.